Bird, 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 bird. Get him, yeah! Ron Babe was right. Ron Babe was right.
I'm feeling spry. Hey everybody, it's Ron Bain with the Hunting Dog Podcast. It's the 31st of January. Man, I was just looking at my 4-month calendar. By the time I get home from Pheasant Fest, which will be on the 20th of February, which will be here like in the blink of an eye, I'll only have about 3 to 4 more weeks before the woodcock are back, and I'll be out in the woods getting dogs out on birds with no gun, and that is a great time. No pressure on missing, and it gives them dogs some wild bird experience, especially when the woodcock come back, especially with my new little dog. We're just going to leave it at that, okay? We'll get into that as the series grows. I always thank my Patreon patrons first, and I want to thank the ones who came to last Zoom room even more, because I've been showing my Patreon patrons snippets of a couple of projects I've been working on. It's like let's just call it a filming project. It's not a television show, so don't go there. I'm not that stupid. But some stuff I've been working on, and they're there to give me some feedback and some ideas, and they've been real helpful. And you know the other thing they're going to get? Patreon patrons are going to get me and this new dog going through every little step in the kennel that you need to do with a young dog. And, of course, it's all based on the, you know what it's based on. It's based on the Upland Institute. It's based on good common sense training, the little things you should do with a pup before you ever do anything else. All right. In fact, that's kind of the theme of this podcast. I got a hold of my buddy Travis Frank, and he's, of course, with the Flush, and he'll have a booth at Pheasant Fest, and he'll be doing some talks, and they're going to have a live podcast in Minnesota on Friday. I think it's 6 o'clock. And they've got their own version of a trivia game, and I'm going to be a contestant. So I didn't have to come up with the questions, but Travis has to, and I'm on the panel. You want to talk about a hoot? And then after that, we got the hospitality suite, the Leinenkugel Onyx hospitality suite. Oh, this is going to be epic. You won't. Anyway, this podcast, we are going to go all over the board and make it a little infomercial for Pheasant Fest, which we did at the end. But Travis and I really got into the nuts and bolts of his dog, his first dog, and where he started and where he got in 2 years. And this is a story that a lot of people go through. Not exactly like Travis's, but very similar. There's those things we really, in fact, at one point I think Travis said, we should just do a whole episode about training our dogs. From his perspective of, not having dogs before, and then going to a trainer, getting some help, hands-on help, not sending the dog off. And it turned into one of the funnest podcasts I've done. But let's get back to my Patreon patrons and what they get. And besides the discounts on like Pike Gear and Onyx and Waltons and Weatherby shotguns and Upland, Upland Institute and K9. Besides all that, Let's thank Pike Gear, who will be there right across the aisle from me at Pheasant Fest with all their gear. All their gear. You can try it on. They'll have a changing room. You can actually see it, kick it, pull it, feel it, put it on, see if it fits, right? And see how you like it when it fits. Anyway, they're going to be at Pheasant Fest. I just can't wait for Pheasant Fest. I'm telling you, it's gearing up like a hunting trip. And our booth is going to be like, when you walk into our booth right across the aisle, it's going to be a big space, and it's going to have the backdrop of the kennel, and we got a bar built, and we've got bartenders, and we got the cornhole for conservation game. Oh, we got prizes anyway, let's just go down the list, okay? Of course, Pike Gear will be across the aisle from me. Onyx will be there, and Onyx will also have prizes for anybody playing cornhole for conservation. Boss Shot Shells won't be there, but they will be there next season to make the best bismuth copper-plated shells in the world. Everybody knows it's kind of like when Facebook caught on. Everyone says like, "Well, do we need this?" And it's like everybody, like I don't go anywhere without hearing the name Boss Shot Shells, and you don't either. So get ready for next season with Boss. Walton's is going to send us everything but the meat. Just like their name says, we're going to have Walton prizes to give away. It's going to be we're going to have more giveaways than a banquet. But I will have a bunch of their stuff there. And in the meantime, get the catalog. You're going to love their catalog, especially this time of year. You're not really doing anything. Figure out what you need for next year to have that wild game kitchen. You can do that. I know you can. Gunner Kennels, I'll have 2 Gunner Kennels there. I'll have the food crate. I'll have the winter door. I'll have all the stuff from Gunner. And that's actually how we're going to play cornhole for conservation. We have bored a hole into the front of a perfectly good Gunner food crate, which they're going to have to give me a new lid. That's okay. And that is how we're going to play cornhole for conservation, with a Gunner Kennel food crate. See how you do. You can play for free, or if you want to give a little bit to conservation, you can throw a buck in the hat, and you can take a shot and win a koozie, win a hat. There'll be some grand prizes, like Garmin, for instance. Garmin is donating a collar and a transmitter. That's right, and that will be one of the grand prizes. Probably going to be on Sunday. Whoever's there for the weekend, and it gets pretty good at cornhole, we're going to set this thing up, and we got to give away all this shit when we're done on Sunday. So yes, if you have to leave on Saturday, some of this stuff I could mail to you, but just try to be there on Sunday too, because Sunday's kind of a slow day, and it won't be at our booth, but it just gets that way. So W Hunting Supply, they will not be there, but they're going to be at the Michigan Bear Hunters Conference. I'm going to be up there and seeing Jason and Buddy. But to my point, if you can't come there and pin all your hopes on winning a brand new Garmin collar and transmitter, then you could go to W Hunting Supply and buy it from the one company who actually uses and knows the product. Whatever brand you want to buy, they have it. They've got everything you need. They do. They're like Waltons. They got everything but the dogs. They got everything for the dogs. And Deck Drawer Systems, they will not be there. Sadly, I wish they were, because I'd like to hang out with them guys. But they have everything for your everything, being the Deck Drawer System. You've seen it. You've heard other people talk about it. I'm sure you've seen it at some hunting trip you've been on. You've been in the back of a parking lot. You've been somewhere, and you're like, Oh, that guy's got the Deck Drawer System. You know why? Because once you see it and use it, you will never go back. Once you go decked, you'll never go back. You won't. And that's the perfect spot to keep your Weatherby shotgun. Who will be there? You want to see the new Weatherby models? Weatherby is going to be at Pheasant Fest. I can't wait to see what they're coming up with. I can't say anything because I think I know what they've got, and I'm excited about it. We'll see what happens. Stop by the Weatherby booth. Purina, of course, is going to be there. Purina's like the biggest sponsor of Pheasant Fest. I mean, it almost feels like it's Purina Fest, which it should. They support conservation. They support us. They support the hunt test. They support the field trials. They support the agility ring. They support everything in the dog world, so support them. Feed your dog the best. Seriously. So don't. And Canine Athlete is going to be in our Hunting Dog Podcast Village with their parent company, Wilderness Athlete. They're going to be having all of their product line, Hydrate and Recovers, obviously for your dog, but the people stuff. They're going to have all the people supplements. They're going to be literally making Wilderness Athlete cocktails. And we'll let them use our bar, too, because we're all going to be in one happy little village. And you can come and see all the product line from Wilderness Athlete, including Canine Athlete. Jack from Gumleaf Boots is going to be there in the space. And you know Jack. You've seen him. You've met him before if you've been to Pheasant Fest at my booths. And just make sure you wear something that you can slip on and slip off, because Jack's going to pull you out of the aisle and say, have you ever seen a pair of boots like this? Here, come here, sit down. That man is a salesman. And there's a good reason for it, because he's got a great product, Gumleaf Boots. And the don't forget, I always forget the Jaeger leads. Literally. I mean, well, you know what? He'll have the Jaeger leads there, too. And you will see, like, the same lead that I found in Denmark, like, 15 years ago. And I still have that. It's still the only Jaeger lead I use. It's made out of bridle leather. It's made with European hardware. That means it's metric, probably. It's classy too. It really is. It's just classy. So yeah, come on out. I can't wait to see everybody. So like I said, this episode with Travis Frank. Oh, the other thing you can see is we'll have the Upland Institute up on a screen, and there will be some giveaways for that too. But you can come by, you can look at some of the training, you can go through the whatever course you want to go. We'll have a big space for that with a big television. We'll have it playing continuously, and please come and ask. I'll give you some. Yeah, you know what I'm saying. You come to Pheasant Fest for your Upland Institute, I'll take care of you. Okay, that's all I'm saying. I'll take care of you. Or, you know what, if you can't make it and you know some friend that's going to Pheasant Fest, have them go. And you know what I'm saying. I'll let you step on it a little bit, okay? Yeah, and like I said, Travis and I we're so geeked up. We talked for an hour and a half yesterday, and we just wanted to hit the record button and keep talking. And we're as excited about last season as we are next season. And it was a really interesting journey that Travis has been on with his dog, and where he had to go, and he had to hit the restart button with this dog and literally take a somewhat older dog and start over like a puppy. And I know this has happened to other people. It's happened to me back in the day. I kind of like, the dog's fine. I don't need to do nothing with it. It'll be fine. And come to find out, you didn't do the foundation. So this is kind of a infomercial at the end, but it's really about, well, there's a little bit about making television shows and some of the hunts that Travis goes on. Anyway, it was just one of my favorite conversations in the last year is this episode you're going to hear right now. Don't skip it. Don't. Well, you know what? I'm going to say something, and you'll only know where it's from. I don't think you're going to want to miss this one, which I always think is a silly thing to say because you already hit play. I think it should be, I think you're going to enjoy this one. I think you're really going to enjoy this one. I did. Talk to you soon. See you at Pheasant Fest. Love you guys, love you girls, and love you Pheasant Fest attendees even more.
Travis, we are not making an episode of The Flush, so there is no need for dramatic lighting, okay?
Fair enough.
Hey, everybody, it's Ron Bain with the Hunting Dog Podcast. I'm on the phone with now a friend of mine. We've gotten to hunt once together, and it is Travis Frank from The Flush Podcast, The Flush television show. And I'm one of them podcasters who has either back in the day, Travis, more time than most because I was in the car all the time.
Mm-hmm.
And now that I'm retired, I literally listen to every one of you guys, right? Everybody that we all know and some that we don't. I find time to squeeze in those podcasts, you know?
Yeah, and you do send me random
I do
texts from time to time saying that was pretty good or that was terrible.
I do that. I do that to Tyler. I've done it to Nick from DIY. I've done it to Nick from Nick Larson. And I can always tell it's like, oh, thanks, Ron. I didn't know you listened to my show.
Yeah. Well, hey, I do the same too from time to time. I check in with my friends and see what they're up to. And it's kind of an easy way to stay connected, I guess, at least for us. But we are way overdue to get out hunting again.
Yeah, we might as well cover that first. Now, I am going to have to get my expenses paid this time, Travis. You
had expenses?
Oh, you guys don't have an expense account when you do a television show?
Oh, they rack up really fast.
Yeah, that's something that like nobody would think about. I see all these people putting up, and I dig into YouTube at night too. I watch my fair share of television and morning news and everything, and I look at all the people out there, building a YouTube channel and trying their best to make like a little episode.
Yeah,
I'm like, guys, if that's their end goal to make a television show, you want to talk them out of it right now, Travis?
Oh, well, it can be a real grind, and even some content that I've enjoyed watching, I look at it and sometimes I think, I don't know if it's sustainable because there's so much effort put into getting that content, and there's so much time and resources. And then when you get back, you have to edit everything as well. It adds up so quick that if you don't have companies or a sales team working behind the scenes, it's not sustainable.
Right. It's not. And I give them credit for doing it and wanting to show what they do. But I just hope none of them are hoping for, you know, your company or another company to call them up and say, hey, we want to buy your show, because that's not how it works.
No.
And
No.
I've seen
Well, Ron, it could work that way, I guess, if it really kicks butt.
right. If it really kicks butt. Yeah, it does. And maybe you guys would be, maybe you would make somebody an offer, but because I've made shows with you, I've made shows with Meat Eater, and before that, to me, it's almost like some of the guys I've watched hunt, it's like, why would they want to be distracted to think about content when they're just like, wouldn't you, how often do you, Travis, get to go hunt by yourself without a camera? You know,
Not as often as you would think.
that's what I was assuming.
Yeah. And the reason for that too is because I've got a really young family at home.
Yeah.
And so if I'm gone for, 5, 6, 7 days, I'm not going to get home and then say, all right, I'm out of here and go
Right.
for another 5 or 6 days on my own. It's just, it's not fair to my kids. It's not fair to my wife. And I get out occasionally for a short walk near my place somewhere. And to be honest, it's not great hunting where I live in central Minnesota. It's okay. And I do have places that I know I can go find birds. This past year was actually pretty good. I never went out without finding birds, even locally, wild birds, public land and private. I knock on a lot of doors. And I've lived in this area my whole life, basically. So I know a lot of people and I've gotten permission, which it does help if I have 45 minutes to go for a walk, that I could go walk a small piece of private property and find some birds. But I don't get out very often without a camera, which definitely has changed the hunting dynamic for me in ways that people don't always think about when they make their passion their career.
Right. And it's funny too, because out of, a lot of the shows that have been made over the years, I mean, shows that made it to television and Outdoor Channel and stuff like yours, you hunted for many years without a dog.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess I'm going to start off with that one. We'll get to everything else we want to talk about because we're excited about Pheasant Fest coming up. But I don't know how many episodes you've done, but how many episodes have you brought Daisy along with you? And then did that add a level of stress to the whole thing?
Hell yeah. I mean, it's already stressful when you go in the field. You got a short amount of time. A lot of times I'm going places I've never been, almost always. Yeah. And a lot of times with people I've never hunted with. I mean, like, imagine you and Brent Pike and I having to put a TV show together. We've never hunted together before. So it's all, you got to figure out, that time when we were out on the island, Ron, like we had to kind of figure things out together. And then, we've got to have a camera in position to capture it all from whichever perspective they can get. So there's a lot of stresses there. And now all of a sudden I had this rocket of a dog in that wants to go check out the other state. Like, no, honey, we're hunting in Montana. We are not hunting in Wyoming right now. Get back here. I mean, so, the challenge is the stress. So she's hunted with me. She's 2.5 years old. She'll be 3 actually, coming up here in a couple months.
Yeah, right. In Pheasant Fest, I think they were born.
I want to say March. I got to look at her date, but I think it's like March 13th. Okay. She turns 3. Yeah. So this year compared to the season, or this past season, compared to the one prior, it was like I had 2 different dogs in the field. Yeah. I mean, there was no comparison to what I got to hunt with. This year was a joy. The year prior was anything but that. And I mean it too. Like, it was misery out there in the field. And there were times where I'm thinking, oh my goodness, what am I going to do here? Like, I have to produce TV shows. I can't handle this dog that is just so buck wild out there, not listening, just doing what she wants. And she's a mile away. I mean, it was not fun.
No, I remember talking to you about that. And it's just, so anyway, I guess what I'm saying is to all you YouTubers out there, good luck. But you know what? Unless you're dead set on getting hired somewhere, just enjoy your time with your dog out there, and we're not trying to make content.
Totally. Ron, I get a lot of people that will write in, and I'm sure you get this too, but they'll say, I want to do what you're doing, or how should I go about it to getting there and starting my own show or being on the show or things like that. And sometimes I tell them, depending, how deep into the conversation we get, sometimes I'll tell them, if you really love to hunt and this is something you really want to do, get a job that you can make a good living at and earn some time off and go out and enjoy the hunt with friends or with your dog or by yourself. Because if you try to turn this into a job, it can really change hunting for you and take the joy out of it in a hurry.
Yeah. Well, luckily it hasn't taken the joy out of it for you, because you're always laughing and smiling on every episode. But
yeah, you got to laugh at yourself.
Well, that's the thing. It's like, I don't know. I listen to a lot of your podcasts. I only watch X amount of video, because I'm cruising through that.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, when somebody watches your show, they see the enjoyment. You don't make it look, it's a grind if you think about it, but you see the camaraderie. Like I've always said, if it wasn't for beer and friends, I don't know how much I'd hunt. I just like going to new places and meeting new people. And I think that's your show has always been about going to new places and meeting new people.
Try to. Sometimes I enjoy going back with some friends that I really love to hunt with, and we'll go to a new place, but we'll tackle it together. Ron, when you and I were driving across Lake Michigan, staring at an island, and I distinctly remember this. I looked over at you, you looked at me, and you're like, would you come back here? And we both said, no, not coming back. But it wasn't because it wasn't an incredible place. It's just because we both like to experience something new and go somewhere else. So it's like, I did this. I checked it. Yeah.
Yep. That was, I self-indulgently watched that episode again the other night.
Did you? Oh, I can't do it. I still hurt from that one. I still don't understand what the hell was growing out of the ground out there.
I don't either. I think I called it, I think I called it like hemlock ferns or something. I don't know what it was, but that one island, there was nothing enjoyable. But those, to that point, those hunting stories are what make you laugh all the time.
Yeah.
Even if it's the one that doesn't bring you any, it brought you joy. Of course, you happen to be literally violently ill by the last day, which I don't know how I would have, you knew you had to stick it out, but my God,
Oh gosh, I was miserable. I started driving and I told our cameraman that was with me shortly after, I said, I think I'm going to pass out. And we pulled over and I went and laid in the grass in the ditch, and I was so sick, Ron. Oh gosh, I was so sick. I don't know what it was. That was pre-COVID, but it sure felt like whatever everyone is talking about. But yeah, it was bad. I don't know what I ended up in the hospital when I got home from that. But we still ended up with an experience that I definitely remember. I will say though that we're due for something else.
I agree. And
what's on your list, Ron? Where do you want to go next?
I owe myself, I've only actually hunted Montana twice, and it was really all in one long trip. So I had about 2-3 days of a few spots going after some huns and some sharp tails and some pheasants. There's something, it's for me, it's like, oh, I don't want to drive through North Dakota. It's like, why leave birds to find more birds?
Yeah.
But I do want to hit Montana. I do want to hit something besides sage grouse in Wyoming, because Wyoming can be really exciting.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm a little worried about rattlesnakes, so I want to hit it later. Do you think about that when you're out there, rattlesnake? Because
I do now. Yeah, I do now. We were in South Dakota 2 years ago, and we were hunting the national grasslands, and we didn't make it an hour into the hunt. One of our dogs got struck.
Oh.
And we had to race that dog to the vet. I was with Tyler Webster last year about early January.
Yeah.
And we were down in Arizona. and I had a rattler coiled up, and I can't hear very well. And I wear hearing aids when I'm not hunting, but I didn't have hearing amplification in when we were walking up this mountain valley, and he heard this like this sound like a cicada, and all of a sudden it clicked in his mind, and he turns back and he yelled, "Travis, no!" or something, and the snake is coiled up, and I jumped like 75 feet backwards in one leap. I had been wearing snake gaiters the 2 days prior because we were in cactus country.
Right.
And I wear it because it's kind of like body armor for all those needles on the plants. It was in the 20s that morning. And each morning before we started hunting, frost on the windshield, everything in Arizona. So none of us had thought about rattlesnakes, but it warmed up to 70 that afternoon, and it was on a south facing slope, and the rattler was out. And so, yeah, I used to hunt Wyoming and different states when it was warm, and I didn't think much of it. And now I can't stop thinking about it. Like I really, it's in the back of my mind. One of our cameramen that we freelance with, he got struck by a rattlesnake on a shoot, not with our company, a different company. But we were just talking about it. He was filming with me in Kansas 2 weeks ago or 3 weeks ago now. And we were talking about that snake and how insane everything was after the fact once he got bit, and how expensive, and the anti-venom and all this other stuff that he went through. I hate snakes. I hate snakes, and it really changes my plans now moving forward.
So when you ask me, Ron, where are you going to go next year?
Mm-hmm.
I've somewhat talked myself out of anything warm where you could find a snake.
Yep.
I know you could have bad luck anywhere, but here's one state, and I think I tallied this up. I don't tally up bird counts or species. There's a lot of species I've never swung a gun on. But I think I bought hunting licenses in like 30 states over my lifetime. And I've never bought a hunting license in Nebraska. And I never, so if you want to set something up for Nebraska with me, I don't know. We need some contacts. You probably have some contacts. I could probably find some.
For sure.
I feel like I look at Nebraska and it's like, why wouldn't it be almost as good as South Dakota and almost as good as Kansas? It's right there. I just don't know. I just don't know the state of Kansas or Nebraska. I've drove through it.
Yeah.
I just don't know it. Have you done a show or a hunt in Nebraska?
I've done a couple. Yeah. I hunted in the, in the north part of Nebraska. There's what are the big grasslands of rolling hills? What do they call that?
Oh, you're talking the sand hills.
The sand hills. Yeah. I hunted in the sand hills last fall, and I didn't do justice to the hunt because we went late for prairie chicken. Late meaning like, late October, but for prairie chicken, it's kind of like sharptails. That's an early season bird. If you want to have good dog work on them and get close to them, they get so jumpy, and then they can flock up. So we went on horseback, which is an incredible way to do it because, it's so vast and so big out there, and you can go it seems like for days sometimes. So that was a good way to do it. It's just that the birds were just so skittish by that point of the hunting season. And, but I enjoyed it. I think that's one to go back to. I also just hunted, a mixture of pheasants and quail in Nebraska a couple of years before that on public lands. And I was amazed too, just how many birds. But I honestly, those numbers really fluctuate so much based on the drought. And I would say that there were probably pockets that were good this year, but as a whole, most people were saying numbers were down just a little bit. So around when we go, I think we're just going to go where I see the highest concentration of birds, because sometimes that really does trump a beautiful hillside view.
Yeah. When you hear the people go, I'm not about, limits anymore. I'm like, no, yeah, it's not about limits. But if you at least see birds, it keeps you. Yeah,
for sure.
If you miss them and the birds are wild, it's still a great day. But yeah, going somewhere, I'm going to segue right into the last time I sent you a text, you just put out recently that ptarmigan episode you did.
Yeah. We didn't get a bird, Ron, as you saw.
And I was like, boy, that is, and I'm not like I got 20 years on most of the guys I hunt with. I'm not looking for that. I'm okay with a day I didn't hit anything, but I don't know if I'm okay with a 3-day not seeing anything.
Right. Yeah.
That's tough.
I would say that was one of the most extreme hunts that I've ever done because of, just what it took to get up there. I mean, we didn't start hunting until we were above tree line, and I wouldn't call it a road. We did drive vehicles to get to where we couldn't drive any further, and then the hike began. It was more like a trail, like an ATV trail. I mean, washouts, giant boulders in the road that you had to climb over. I mean, it was a nasty road to get up there. And then the hike began. And what you don't realize when you start hiking at that elevation is how slow you have to go. You can't run 20 yards on flat ground and not feel like you ran a marathon,
Right.
because the air is just so unbelievably thin.
Yep.
And everybody's body reacts different to that kind of elevation. So we started at like 12,000, 12,500, something like that. And then we hiked up into like 14,000 feet above sea level. And that, like, I'm a flatlander, just like you are, Ron. I come from Minnesota, and it's pretty flat here. I flew into Denver. I drove up this, I don't know what we stayed at, but my body didn't truly fully adjust to that elevation. And then I had pretty much a sustained headache all 3 days that we were up there.
Oh.
I had a feeling like I was kind of hungover. I drank so much water. I mean, just constantly drinking water.
It didn't change anything, did it?
No.
It might have kept it at bay a little more, but
kept it from getting worse. Yeah. But you're talking about being on top of the world. So I fought through it because, I mean, my goodness, the places that the views that we had up there. And there were times where we got into where the ptarmigan were, and we saw tracks in the snow. The weather just killed us there. We had blizzard come in, and, it would dump like 6-8 inches of snow in a matter of an hour, and then it would melt, and then here comes some more snow. But you don't get to just say, okay, we're going to go quickly check out this spot, because it takes so long to climb 1,500 feet in elevation or 2,000 feet high, that like you're committed to that. If the covey flew off of that mountainside and went to the other one, like that's tomorrow. You know what I mean? And we had tracks in the snow, so we knew the birds were there. It's just that for where they went, we will never know, but they were there minutes, hours, seconds, I don't know, before we got to them. And
even tracks and scat in front of you.
Yeah. And there was a fox that flushed them the first covey, because we got up to where we wanted to go. We knew there were birds in this area, and all of a sudden we're on these tracks, and we see fox tracks in the snow, and the covey's gone. So the fox flushed the birds before we could get to them. And it was just one of those, I don't know, like I couldn't not tell the story, even though we didn't get a bird. We've never aired a bird hunting TV show where we didn't get a bird before, but I had quite a bit of feedback from people that were just happy to see that, because that can be the reality if you go on kind of an adventure like that. We also had, when you're up there on top of those high peaks like that, you're in the clouds and you're in the storms, and we had lightning come in at one point. And that's one of those things where the guy's like, okay, you got to lay down and you can't be standing up because now you're the only tall object. And like, it's just, so we saw a lot of stuff. There was a time where we got where we wanted to go and the snow started and we couldn't take both vehicles because one of them is more jacked up and rigged for that kind of a off-road. And then the snow came in and it was coming down so fast. And it's like, well, it might melt today, but if it doesn't, we're not getting down.
Right.
So we pulled the pin and we're like, okay, we got to get back down. So we never hunted a spot we wanted to, and we had to go to a different area. And so that's, I guess, the reality of trying to make reality TV as close to reality as we possibly can.
Yeah. I think that's the wrong term. I'd say real TV.
Real TV. Yeah.
Real TV,
Mm-hmm.
it shows like out of all the people out there doing it, you're hoofing it. You're not like you could have not scheduled that hunt, but that
Yeah.
wanderlust part of you, somebody says ptarmigan in Colorado, and I bet you got all excited, right? Like,
Heck yeah, absolutely. I like to go on the wildest adventures I could possibly drum up.
right.
I'd go on more like that, but I have to convince a cameraman to follow me. And so that's ultimately what determines where I go, because
You can find another numbnut hunter that wants to.
yeah. I have a reputation at our office that when somebody signs up to go on a hunt with me, they're in for an experience that, like, this is not a Milo strip in South Dakota that, they're going to walk 200 yards. It's going to be an all dayer. We're packing food with, we're going somewhere that few people want to be. Or maybe that they don't, and maybe it's not that they don't want to be there, but few people get to a spot like that.
Right,
Yeah.
right. Well, there's desire for sure. But for our average, like your listeners and watchers and my listeners, they only have a week's vacation. And so they're not going to put themselves like, hey, let's go somewhere that I saw on television where we got no birds.
Yeah.
So, by that show, you're going to help with overcrowding in that area. I can.
Right. Well, it's interesting too, because ptarmigan in Colorado only live above tree line.
Right.
And so those mountains are called the Teeners. And there's this huge craze right now for people around the country to conquer all the Teeners in Colorado for hikers. So all of a sudden we see these random hikers coming by us because if they make it to the top of these mountains, they can check it off their list. And, like we have to get a filming permit to go in some of these places. And the spot that one of the hunters originally wanted to go, we couldn't go because they wouldn't issue us a permit to film there.
Really?
So we ended up going to plan B or C. We never even got to go to the plan A that he's hunted for, 25 plus 30 years. So that's part of the real TV, I guess. Yeah.
I didn't see Daisy on that episode.
No, she wasn't ready for it yet.
Sounds like both of you would have had a headache if.
Oh, hey, you know what? Maybe it would have been okay, but she would have probably gone on point on that other mountain, and we just would not have been able to get there.
True. You would have been like, "Oh man, this is one time I don't need you to hold point. I just need you to come back."
Yes, exactly. Oh my goodness.
Let's chat because I think most people know. I don't think everybody listens to both of our shows, but we know we have a lot of crossover friends just from all the people we've talked with. So you got Daisy from Tyler going on almost 3 years ago. And I remember, where, like you said, where Tyler raised her, the dog could make 400-yard wind sprints. And when whatever a dog learns to do as a puppy, in their mind, that is exactly what they should be doing. So you might have been fighting not only her genetic range, but then her influence of how she was raised, of like, it's like a kid that was raised with no school, right? And then you want to go put them in public school, and all of a sudden they don't know how to act in the classroom.
She did not know how to act. That's right. Yeah, there were so many things that I learned about this puppy, and I've been very open in sharing all of my failures as a trainer and the struggles, which in turn a lot of people have found to be
helpful.
What's that?
I'm sure they found it to be helpful. Yeah,
absolutely, because then it lets them know that, okay, I'm not alone. There's different boldness and attitudes and different dog breeds, and some of them want to be, hey, I'll do whatever I can to, satisfy you, master. And some of them, I'll tolerate you. Some of them, I don't want anything to do with you. Some of them are big running dogs. Some of them are close ranging in the breeds and the genetics. And we could dig into that, and we maybe should, but this particular dog has a mother that Tyler Webster calls the fur missile. and I hunted with her. Shame on me for saying I wanted that, I guess. But that dog was like, you've hunted with her, Ron, right?
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah. She's 400 yards to your right. You look down and check to make sure your gun has shells in it. You look up and she's 500 yards to your left, and that half of a second. I mean, she flies out there. Well, my dog has that same speed. She also has the drive and the desire. I mean, the prey drive is out of this world. And I had a lot, during the struggles, had a lot of dog trainers that I really trust that had world-class dogs, and every one of them said, if you don't want her, I will take her. So that told me that I want this. I just have to figure it out. So yeah, I got her at like 6 months of age. And at that point, she had a lot of free range out there with Tyler's because he lives out in the country on that hillside where he can see for hundreds of yards.
Yep.
And they, even when we went to pick her up, I remember the dogs come out and they did this whoop, whoop, hot lap, 400 or 500 yard hot lap around the open prairie, and then come running back in and check in and stuff. And when I brought her home, not something that she wished for, but I live in a neighborhood, and
Right.
if she goes 400 yards or 500 yards, she's crossed multiple major highways.
Yeah.
And that's what she did. And that's what was tough. I mean, I distinctly remember that my son at the time was, he was either 5. Yeah, I think he was 5 at the time. Has her on the leash and goes to take her outside the day after we brought her home. And she bolts to go run. And he's holding on for dear life. She's dragging him on his belly as my dog is pulling like this is like a sled dog thing, but
Right.
yeah, he eventually couldn't hold on anymore and she's gone, and the one saving grace, she's a sweetheart that loves everybody. So she sees somebody new and the tail is going crazy and she runs up to say hi. Well, then they realize, okay, there's a leash on this dog that's running wild and free. And then thankfully I got my number on her neck right off the bat.
Yeah.
But we got to a point where I was the only one that could take her out. It was stressful on the family. That just wasn't like, here's our dog that we've waited all our life for. And now, nobody can even be a part of this dog because she just has zero, manners for them, and so we basically had to start over. We had to take this dog from.
Is that what I know? You've had help from, what's your buddy's name?
George Lyle.
George Lyle.
Yep.
We take the approach with her of, I've got a 10-week-old puppy here and I've got to start molding her in the yard. Like what was your process for, like, you kind of had to find a reset, or did you have to just teach obedience at a stronger level, or did you kind of go back? How did you guys do that with him?
Yeah, so basically we had to go back to square one in the training process. We didn't have days. This is something that I learned too, which I think might be helpful for people that are getting puppies. Being that she had these habits, she was, she wasn't an adult dog, but she wasn't a puppy. She had her, probably, yeah. And she had her connection to Tyler, not to me.
Right.
So I had to build this relationship. And unfortunately, everything about our relationship was, I am a mean guy. I don't like anything that's going on here, because everything I had to do was basically correct what she was doing and tell her, no. Yep. So yeah, chain gang didn't like that, but, the command lead. I mean, literally, here I am thinking, oh, I'm so excited to get her out on birds. I need to take her out on birds. She's still a puppy. I want to hunt with her this year. Yeah. Holy crap. And that's why I say this year it was more enjoyable than last year. But the year prior to that was just absolutely brutal. The first time I took her out at 7 months, we were out, and her first run was in the Badlands of North Dakota, and we let her out. And I released her to go hunt. And her first cast out was 900 yards. And eventually
And
she,
it wasn't because she was watching a rooster pheasant glide
nope,
the whole time. No,
Nope.
she just
she gone. Yep. She gone. Yeah. But I ultimately learned through the training over and over that obedience was 100% what I needed to focus on. And going back to the fundamentals, developing that foundation in her,
Yeah.
and just like letting myself forget everything about birds. That is not priority at all, because if she's not going to be respectful of me and her role in our pack, nothing is going to come of our hunt together. And that's ultimately what happened that fall. Yeah, I think we got a few birds, and she ended up pointing a couple birds that I shot towards the end of that hunting season. But it was really a challenge because I had her, if she would flush a bird, Ron, and that bird flew, she thought she was going to catch it.
right.
Bless her for having that drive, but I know that my Garmin clocks out at 1.29 miles
Yeah.
because she ran more than that several times the first year.
It says dog not found.
Yes, lost connection, or whatever it says on there. Oh, it's brutal. The first time I took my boys to hunt behind her, because everyone's excited. Here's our dog, and we go out there, and of all things, a flock of turkeys get up, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm holding down it. The Garmin goes to 18. I'm holding 18. She's yelping while chasing the turkeys until I can't see her and hear her, and eventually lose connection to her on the GPS. Like, that was my reality. And I kept thinking, this is terrible. This is awful. I can't take this dog anywhere. Oh my gosh.
I have not heard the turkey story. That's great.
And at the same time, Ron, she's in heat.
Oh.
She's in heat. So she's gone. She's, a mile away from this little 40-acre property that we're hunting, and she's gone, and she's in heat. And I'm thinking, okay, all right, calm down here. What am I going to do? Guys, we're going back to the truck. So we get in the truck. I called my neighbor. He came to get my kids.
Oh.
I'm on the search to try to get a GPS signal of this dog who's in heat, who's a couple miles away. And I just like, oh my gosh, I don't know if she's going to have, like a bulldog mix breed coming up here in a couple of weeks. I didn't know, even when I finally got her back, like, what did you do?
Could have happened.
Exactly. There are other farms in this area, and most likely there are dogs, and that smell, they all know it.
Oh my God. I've had what I call that is, I think, like we said at the beginning, some of that was nurture, because it's certainly in her to run big, for sure. We know that.
Yep.
That nurture early on was like, oh, it's okay, just run big. So you can't fault the dog, but for your first dog, this is your first dog.
Yeah.
And I remember I had a really good first dog. I mean, I did some research and bought a German short hair, and she was the opposite, right? She just hunted. If we had 5 guys, she ran across 5 guys. The only time I ever lost her was when she got really old and hard of hearing, and she just got on a little wander. And then, so now I'm all into bird dogs, and I buy this black wire hair it was named Haskell, and he had a lot of talent. Now, he wasn't a fur missile, but he had no connection to me whatsoever, right? And I was trying to become a NAVDA judge, and I was trying to get him through his test. And I just wanted to, the only thing I could think of is every day just go like, what am I doing wrong?
Yes.
Because this dog should do something for me. And I took that dog to with some friends of mine. We went up to Canada to go sharptail hunting, and the lodge was called Timberdoodle Lodge. And I always remember my buddy Lance Vernum, he found this ad in a little magazine rag, like a newspaper magazine. And it was a big burned over area of Ontario. And there was enough sharptails in some area to where they found this burned over forest. And they literally polluted the place. It was overrun with sharptails, if you can believe that.
Wow.
Now, later on, that was 18, 20 years ago, right? I didn't understand how, that's the bird that would go to where a fire was and the new grasses come up and everything. So we got up there and we had zero problems getting our birds. It was like hunting sharptails, even though it was later in the year. It was like hunting them in North Dakota, only multiply the number by 5, right? And we had a ball, but my dog never pointed one bird in front of me in 3 days. Never. At one point, my buddy Norm Lick goes, "Hey, Ron, Haskell's on point in front of me." I said, "Take it. Because if I come over there, he'll take it out." The dog would do anything for anybody else but me. So I feel your pain, but the pain I didn't have was the lost dog part, right?
Oh gosh.
If I'd have had that, I might have gave up.
Oh, I mean, I felt it. Like there was times, if I'm being honest, where I had these conversations with George and I'm like, if this is how this dog is always going to be, like, I mean, what am I supposed to do? I've put her on TV. I'm hosting this show, this podcast. We're talking about it. Like, I can't give up on her. I'm going to have people just, like the hate mail would just be overwhelming, but at the same time, the stress of taking this dog out in the field.
Yeah.
And I learned a lot. I learned about putting my dog into situations that can really affect their, how they learn, and the good and the bad. She's been in situations that most puppies probably never would get put into. And that's my own fault, because here I've had this dog that I've waited my whole life for, and I want to hunt with her. But I also, I'm in the field with strangers, other dogs, and she's impressionable. So she's finally doing what I want. And all of a sudden, the start of last year, she's on point, covey of sharptails. Here I go. Here comes a flushing dog in, bumps her off of point, flushes the birds. And she's like, "Oh, this is what we're supposed to do." Oh, was that the start of a frustrating season last year? Because she thought she's a flusher. Yeah. Like, no, you are not a flusher. And you have the wheels to outrun every other dog out there. She gets to, she's got this nose to find them, but she was using it to flush them at 200, 300, 400 yards, which everybody knows that ruins a hunt real quick. Yeah. So I spent every minute that I wasn't filming, every minute in the field that I could with her, reinforcing that you are to stand here.
Yeah.
And going back to that, and then over the repetition of breaking her, I would not shoot a bird that she flushed. I wouldn't give her any sort of reward at all, even though it might have been 20 feet from me and I could have dropped it, And so those are things that I had to do because I wanted to reinforce things, and then there's people that are like, well, I wouldn't, I got close enough to the bird. So therefore I'm, I'll let that slide. And I'm like, no, I can't let anything slide with this dog, nothing. And all the training this past summer was, again, you're to stand here, you're to go with me, you're to come back. There's no exceptions. You are now a year and a half old or 2 years old, and you are an adult and you're accountable for every single thing you do. And the light switch turned on. She went from being able to hold hen pheasants really well to, still getting too close on wild roosters and pushing them out. Then all of a sudden, in August, we're out training and I have the training pistol, and, I'm watching her every move and I can see her that she's on birds. I'm like, I'm going to see how close she gets. First rooster, she flushes out of range. I stop her and make her stand there and think about it. We go a little further. She goes back on point. And all of a sudden I walk up and I flush a rooster right, 20 feet from her nose. And from that moment on, she pointed like 13 or 14 more birds. And it was like, all right, we got something here. You're finally buying in.
You made that photo snapshot in her mind go like, wow, I can get it that way. And so, and I'm not trying to blow any smoke up your skirt, but most people, and like you said, our listeners are a lot of new people. They're looking for information.
Mm-hmm.
Most of them with their first dog don't have to be semi-professional trainers with them, right?
Yeah.
Like you had to go into being a first-time dog owner and you had to lean on and then act like because that's what professional trainers do. They go a whole season without shooting a bird if they're not getting. And you had to put that hat on while you're out there.
Yeah. Yeah. And the camera's rolling when we're out there too. And it's like, there's certain things that like we need to have a heart to heart, me and the dog. You turn the camera off. I don't want to record this conversation because I'll laugh at myself when I go back and look at it. But I'm like, I need to stop for a second.
Mhm.
Even, a couple times when things get wild, like, the wheels can come off in a hurry. And especially if you get into some really birdy areas and it's like, all right, and I could go back in the middle of a hunt, go right back to the very basics. And I do it regularly. If I see her lose it mentally,
Yep.
we stop what we're doing. Guys, I need 10 minutes with her. I'm going to turn her. I'm going to release her. I'm going to handle her and get her back in the right mindset. Okay, now we're back in the hunt. Thank you for waiting a couple minutes here. And so sometimes it's waiting and making those adjustments versus letting your dog just lose their mind out there, getting bird drunk and, just uncontrollable. Because Ron, there's a huge percentage of dogs that go hunting out of control. Some dog trainers that I've interviewed would say it's over 90% of the hunting dogs in America are out of control when they're hunting.
Yeah, well, I don't want to throw a percentage number on it, but I'm sure they've seen enough people and been with enough buddies. And I was one of them guys, and I'm still one of them guys to a point. I mean, the only thing I've actually learned after all these years is to slow down in the beginning with a puppy and get that bond, get that obedience down, because the instincts don't expire.
Yeah.
Right? The nose doesn't get worse when they get older. Their love of birds was there from the minute they were born. So I've at least learned to slow that down. But then when it comes to a dog that if I'm in range, if the dog held point, have I ever seen my dog move forward and I still was successful? But I just taught that dog it be good, but that's okay.
Yeah. Yep.
Like I said, with your dog, with a dog that's on that edge, you can go right back to saying, hey, you know what? Go back to crossing highways. Because, and that's a chore. And I was going to ask you, because we know the second biggest question we get is on retrieving. What does she do when she gets a bird? Does she retrieve or does she stand there, or what's her demeanor like? Because sometimes that I want to run so big is a dog finds the bird and says, I'm going to go find another one. Or does she get engaged with the bird?
So she will go pick up the bird. She'll bring it right back to me. She'll give it to my hand. She turns around and she used to just take off again and go back to hunt. Now she knows that she's to stand here. That's still part of her training. So she'll stand there. I release her to go and she will go. If I, like for the camera, sometimes they'll be like, hey, I didn't get a shot of her retrieving. And I say, sorry, that was your only chance. If I throw it out there and I tell her to fetch, she will not.
Right.
She will not hold it in her mouth. Once she brings it back, she's done with it. She wants to go find the next bird. And I'm totally okay with that, because she did everything I wanted. The television side of it, I always tell the camera, I'm like, you get one chance. And like she's going to bring it and she's not interested in it after that fact. And I'm okay with that, because she pointed it, she stood there, I shot it, I released her to go get it. She did exactly what I told her to do. She brought it right back to hand. She doesn't typically stop 10 yards away. She bring it right to my hand and release it. And it's like, that's everything. Like you did it all, girl.
Yeah.
I can't ask any more of you, and I won't. Yeah, but she then wants the next one. It's amazing how that prize, the second it left her jowls, is no longer something she gives
She doesn't jump up and try to steal it out of your pouch or anything, right?
No.
She just like, let me go find another one.
Go get another one.
I mean, and I've had the dogs, like you've met Bravo, of course, and that dog is just a clown for one thing, right? And he was a dog that if we had to make retrieving on the television, like if the cameraman said, hey, Ron, do you think we could get, I'm telling you, we could do 5 takes with that dog, right?
Right, yeah.
He'd be like, yeah, I'll do it again. I'll do it. But that same dog you look at the tailgate, you're like, wait a minute, there was 3 birds on the tailgate. He's out running around with the bird in his mouth. So there's a price to pay for that dog that'll retrieve over and over and over. But it's good to hear that she's got the retrieve part of it, because, when we do get successful, I think it kills us as bird hunters just as much as it does a deer hunter. When we can't find that bird, that's heartbreaking,
Mm-hmm.
And so if you got the dog that comes up and gives it to you quick and takes off again, you got a 10 there for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. The challenge that I have now is if a bird gets shot and it goes down and I tell her to fetch,
Mm-hmm.
She's still young enough where she worked through a few times this season where I'm like, how long do I let her go? Because is she still looking for that bird, or is she back to hunting again? Because did that bird run 300 yards away? And am I okay letting her do that? She did find birds that ran a long ways this year, but there were other times where I was convinced that she skipped her assignment and just went on to doing what she wanted again, which is hunting. And I'm like, get back here.
Right.
This is where it went down. Try again,
Right. It's kind of like, yeah, I think I could find it, but you know what? I think I could find you another bird.
Right, exactly. It's not here. Let's go. Come on, move on. But yeah, she's that whole part of it too has just been a lot of fun to watch, and just kind of like, I think, there's so much that we put on our shoulders as trainers and what we're trying to get through to our dogs, but there's times where you have to judge that situation and make a reaction, and it's easy to second guess after the fact, but you got to sometimes trust your gut in that moment and say, she might be on a bird right now. I've got to let her continue, because I don't want to take that out of her either. So we're still a work in progress.
Just imagine how easy your next dog, whatever it is, whatever year it comes, your next dog, you're going to be like, seen that, done that. You're not getting away with that.
That's the hardest thing too, is trusting everything that people tell you. Ron, George Lyle took me under his wing, and he's got over 30 years of dog training experience with Rick and Ronnie Smith and Delmar. And I've hunted with his dogs, and they are unbelievable. Like everything I'd ever want in a dog. So I had this person with all this knowledge, but I also had seen the finished product and know that that's what I want. So therefore, everything you tell me, I'm just going to accept it as gospel, and I'm going to do it. Right. I had to kind of eliminate some of these outside voices that all wanted to say, oh, I'd do this or do that. Or, they see this dog running away, and I'm like, I believe you, George. I trust you. It's just, how long is it going to take to get there? Yeah. And, even this summer, he said he's seen some dogs that it doesn't click for them until 3 or 4 or 5. And I told him, I'm like, I don't think I can do another year like that of a dog. I don't think I have it in me another season. I go, this is not enjoyable at all. Fortunately, it all switched for her going into this season, which made this the most enjoyable hunting season I have ever been a part of. She pointed hundreds and hundreds of wild birds this year. And the grouse and woodcock season up here was incredible. I got to hunt with friends that had never hunted behind a dog. And I'm not saying she's a great dog, but they got to see a dog that would go out and find every bird in the county and stand there until you flushed it. And then she'd go retrieve it and go find the next one. They now have puppies and another puppy on the way, because they're like, I want in on that. So it's like the fun behind it was there, and people got to see that kind of dog in action. And now they're they all want Tyler to breed again.
I don't think that's going to happen.
He won't do it.
I'll take that. There's an old black and white Spencer Tracy movie that I would say would almost mirror your journey. Right. And this is a real rabbit hole, but it was called Boys Town. And it was probably made in the 30s or 40s. And Mickey Rooney was a juvenile delinquent from the city that went out to Nebraska in boys' home. And Father Flanagan's words were, there's no such thing as a bad boy, right? And he would work with them. And then eventually they'd graduate with a diploma from Boys Town and be an upstanding, But Mickey Rooney was that one guy that tested him tested them all the way to the end.
Oh, she did it, but it's worth it. And that's what I can tell people now. If you have that dog that pushes you, just stick with the foundation, the fundamentals, drive it home, hold your dog accountable. Now she'll stand there through the shot.
Yeah.
It got to the point this later in the season where I didn't hold that on her. I'll bring it back this summer and this spring and summer where I don't want her to move after the shot, not even flinch. But I've certain scenarios where I want to make sure she does not move.
Right.
There's horror stories out there and reasons why. Everyone can decide if they want steady to flush, steady to shot. And there's arguments to be made both ways on that. But to be able to get her there was something that I was really proud of.
Yeah, no, most people don't. And that argument, I've heard it. Obviously, I've heard it probably 20 more years than you've heard it, right?
Mm.
And I've trained dogs to that level of wing, shot, and fall for a test. But then going into hunting season, I can call that dog off of a hen pheasant or not shoot it. He doesn't chase it. So the folks that I know, they're like, yep, as long as my dog lets me shoot the bird, I'm okay with that. But a little bit of obedience, even during that, at least to the shot, that means the dog is still doing his job while the bird's flying away and you're making a shot decision, not getting into the action. Because, low flying quail or something like that, it's
right.
A buddy shooting at a bird from an angle that he can't tell the height. No, and like you'll go back this spring, and I would say you're going to anchor her. You're going to get her back to as steady or steadier, because it'll slip a little bit, but as long as it doesn't slip and go backwards to puppyhood.
I can't imagine it ever getting back to that point. And there's certain birds that, the argument can be made on a pheasant too. The cover can be so thick that if they're not on it right away and the bird goes down and starts running, so you want a dog that goes after it right off a flush. I mean, so it can be different birds at different times of the year and different covers,
Right.
That's where, but I will say though, that if I had my choice, I'd want her to stand there until I tell her, okay, now go get it. Cause it's amazing how well they can watch that bird even after the flush. And when it goes down, they like, okay, fetch, and 80 yards beeline right to where that bird went down. And like, how did you see that? You're right there by the ground. There's a lot of cover, but they go and grab it and bring it back.
Yeah. That argument's always been made about pheasant hunting for sure.
Yep.
We also know that a pheasant that's barely hit is probably not going to get caught by any dog. Doesn't matter if your dog was steady or not steady. There's that pheasant that will get away from a dog every time.
Yeah.
They're just that. I had one this year in South Dakota. I ran into a friend of mine, or became a friend of mine. His buddy came over for dinner and he says, "Where are you going next?" And he goes, "Oh, I got a buddy that works in the tractor business. I'm going to give him a call." He said, "All you got to do is buy him a bottle of whiskey and he'll give you a spot to hunt." I'm like, boy, that's old school South Dakota.
Right. Yeah.
So I'm all excited. I go over there with my buddy Roof, my best friend, since we were like in kindergarten. And I'm so excited. This guy, we meet him at his farm, and I got my cocker, and I've got my wire-haired Vizsla in this small cattails, not small cattail slough, but soccer field size slough, not big. And it's a cut bean field, completely cut bean field all the way around this thing. So I'm like, well, this is a something's coming out of here. Between the Vizsla and the cocker, we're going to be shooting our guns, right?
Yeah.
And this cockbird comes out of the cattails. I took a bad, I'll say it was a bad shot. I shot too quick, right? And when you shoot too quick, you're not in front of the bird. I broke its wing, hit it down. Both dogs were coming out. Of course, they heard the shot. They saw the bird hit the bean field. Now that bird would have lost in a foot race to the next tree line. That bird came straight back at me into this cattail slough with dogs on its tail. Now, the timing was such that the bird was already coming back. They were going there. They saw the bird going back toward me. We lost that bird. Now, steady dog or no steady dog, that's what I'm saying.
Mhm.
sometimes the rooster pheasant wins.
Sometimes they win.
They
Yep,
just win.
absolutely.
It doesn't matter if both of my dogs were steady or both of my dogs were on it. Sometimes that. So going back to this, I think a a degree of steadiness that you can control your dog, whether it's you see something all of a sudden that happens and you don't want to take the shot, having some of that control to just whoa him, or he woes because he hasn't heard a shot yet. He's
Yep.
still being steady. I think that's great. And that you got that on your first dog. I'll go back to what you said your training friends have said. I'll agree with 90% of first dog owners are out there with with basically a rodeo.
Yeah.
They are.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I would say sometimes even first time dog owners that have dogs out of control, it's pretty common to see. Um, and everybody has a different idea of what they consider to be good dog work.
Right.
I've been in the field sometimes with people that come out and from the second their dog is released till the moment that the hunt is over, they're yelling at their dog the whole time. And I'm like, I need to get as far away from this as I can. I can't handle it. Like this, what is happening right now? Why are you yelling? You're yelling 16 commands before the dog can even finish one. Like, and then afterwards, you're like, man, wasn't that good dog work? And I'm like,
Yeah. Whoa,
what?
Whoa, stop. Whoa, stop. Whoa, stop.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, you have no voice left. Like, what are we even talking about here? So it's all different for everybody. And that's why I think some of these trainers, they'll say that so many dogs out there are out of control.
Yeah. I'm leaning more toward the 90% now. You got me.
Right? Yeah, it's pretty high. It's very high. And Ron and I've had the distinct privilege of hunting with so many people over the years and so many dogs that are just like, whoa. And once you see that in real life, in person, it's hard to really put that onto a TV monitor, because sometimes it takes 5, 10, 20 minutes of a dog working, understanding the cover of the bird, where it needs to go to pin it and just see it, all that. Like I can't show that in one clip. It's just not possible. I mean, a segment is 4 or 5 minutes between commercial breaks.
Right.
So
it's not the flush training show. It's the flush hunting show.
yeah, everyone has an opinion on how we should do it. But I think the adventure side of it that we like to take people on has been what we have found to be overall the most enjoyable watch for people. So that's kind of, that's right up my alley, and we stick with that.
Yeah, you're a people person, and that makes the hunt fun, hunting with the right people, because the dogs, dogs will do what dogs do, but short of the guy that's yelling all day,
Yeah, we've had them. Yeah, they're there. And sometimes you got to remove that audio track from the whole TV show, because otherwise nobody would want to watch that. You'd turn it off too.
if they'd ever filmed me and Haskell back in the day, everybody, just even my friends that haven't seen me in a while, they'll just look at me and they'll go, Haskell. Because I thought for some reason if I yelled louder, he'd hear better.
And the reality, Ron, is he knows where you're at, so he can go further away. He's like, oh yeah, there's Dad. Okay, I know where he's at. And it's like, I'm louder so he can go further and continue doing it. Yep.
I was absolutely vilifying exactly what he was doing with a verbal command.
Yep.
He couldn't understand the inflection in my voice. He was just like going, Dad's happy.
They're both, he's like, oh, he thinks this is the best day of his life too. All right, let's go.
I hear that name every time he feeds me too. He loves me.
Oh, it's a fun journey. And I think it's like, we laugh at it. And when I talk about different dogs, I try to keep lighthearted too, and know that I'm not perfect. I don't expect others to be. So I never want people to think that, because it's like your kid, right? You can't talk down on somebody else's kid. But I just talk experience wise from what I've seen. And that's why some of these people that are like, that was good dog work. And I think to myself, oh, everyone has a different opinion then.
In hindsight, Travis, is probably, especially in your position of making content, it was probably the best dog you could, because if you got a dog that was just naturally cooperative, never ran more than 100 yards, pointed, retrieved. Somebody's going to be like, yeah, I wonder who Travis bought him from. I wonder who trained him. Like, you're like, no, mister, this is a chore.
Oh my goodness. Well, I've been blessed that I crossed paths with George Lyle and he decided to take me in. Ben Bredigan, you've had him on your show multiple times.
Great.
And Ben and I we went to school together. We still live about a quarter mile from each other. And he and I go train together with George every once in a while when it works out. And we've bought into the method and I've seen it. And that's why, there's so many training fundamentals that you have in the Upland Institute that I think mirrors what the Huntsmith training method is. And
because Justin was a Rick and Ronnie Delmar Smith reader and absorber back, he's told everybody, he says, it's out of print, but you find Delmar's first book. There's something about doing things the right way. He says, you read that book and apply that book and you'll have something.
Yep.
And that's what those trainers do. They're not, and those trainers aren't usually the biggest competitors in the world. They really understand dogs and they understand the process for it. And it's obtainable by every new dog owner. It's just, you gotta just focus on it and go slow.
Yeah. Slow, lower expectations and stick with it. If it takes a year, if it takes 2 years, it doesn't mean it won't happen. You just have to stay consistent. The other part of it, holding your dog accountable for every action there and then putting them on wild birds and everything will take care of itself at that point.
Yep. Yeah. That's a great journey you've been on. And your journey's not over. I mean, you've got another season to see what it's going to do and to stay on it. So it's going to be fun. We'll have to do this like end of January next year, so I can get the next day's report. And I can tell you that, the breed of dog I've got now, I've had the Bracos and now I have this wire-haired Vizsla. This year, I kept saying, how come he's not running? How come he's not far away from me? But I'll tell you what, there was no yelling. He's learning it. He's learning it his way. It just happens to be very, 70, 80, 100 yards away from me. And it was like, at my age, I needed that,
Yeah. Well, so this is a good topic, Ron, because I like these buddies of mine that I went to school with who've never had hunting bird dogs before. Mm-hmm. We go out hunting. They see this dog go out and just like a heat-seeking bird-finding missile go out and find bird after bird. And they're like, all right, I want to get a dog. I've always had my heart set on this breed, XYZ. And then I have to have the conversation with them and say, okay, so that breed is going to most likely do this, this, and this, which is not going to be what you've seen my dog do.
Right.
His or her strengths will be in different areas, and so people see that and they're like, they see a dog do one thing and then they think that they can just mold whatever breed into doing that. And I'm like, it's not how it works. It just doesn't. So there's a certain amount of breeds that will go out there and want to go hundreds of yards on that mission. They might be lacking in different areas than, the lab or, just you could throw out any different dog breed.
Throw out my breeds of dogs, Griffins. Yeah. You read dog descriptions. That's what I get so many emails on. I'm thinking of this, this, and this. I'm like, wow, you picked 3 different types of dogs.
Yeah.
And you know what I tell them, Travis? I said, why don't you find out who the closest breeder to you is of any bird dog? And if you meet that guy and you like his dogs, and if he's a breeder that welcomes people into his circle, you might fall in love with that breed of dog.
Yep.
Because you'll have a mentor. You'll kind of know what you're getting into instead of that wish list of knowing what you're getting into, And then if you're dead set on a breed, do as much research as you can with it. When people call me because of the Braco background I had, if I don't filter at least 2-hour-long conversations a month about someone, because I'm still listed somewhere on the internet, and I literally try to talk them out of it before I talk them into it. I want to see some. They're like, really? They don't do that. I said, yeah, half of them don't swim. They can't use their back legs. They're like, really? Nobody ever told me that. So I try to talk them out of it. And if they're like, I said, but if you want a very nice dog for the family that's an okay hunter, that's a dog that like you would have to put more into to get more out of. Like your dog, you could have used put less into it to get more out of it. So to your point, yeah, people, they see something and that's not across the canine world, right? It's
Right.
just not.
If I had $1 for every time somebody said you can pull a rope back, you can't push it, I'd probably be a millionaire after this dog here. But that, it does live up to the meaning behind it. And not all dogs have that kind of drive to go out. And some dogs excel at retrieving and getting that bird out of the cover right in front of you. And I mean, they're just different applications. So it has to be taken into thought when somebody's going out. And we're getting into a time of the year where there's a lot of puppies right now. A lot. I mean, I've had 4 different people in the last 3 days send me pictures of their litter and say, anybody looking for a good X, Y, and Z breed, and I say, I'll keep my eyes open. So there's decisions that absolutely have to be made. And you cannot force every dog to do some of the things they're not built to do.
No, yeah. And they'll like you said, they'll all have something good, but yeah, don't set your expectations to something else, set it to, and like I said, a good breeder is to me, the foundation, because that breeder's going to want updates. He's going to want to see what your dog's doing. And he knows that line of dogs. And he'll say, honestly, don't look at that dog, even if you take him to Montana, he's not going to run 300 yards. He's not going to cover the hillside that you're going to have to cover that hillside with him. A good breeder will tell you that,
Yep. If you're not being told that information from a breeder, that's your red flag.
Yeah, exactly. I'm doing a series, a video series, and it's all about with a breeder. I won't release it yet. I'm not going to talk that deep about it, but I found this breeder that was like right person to interview, and we were putting this together. It's basically an hour long, and we end up back in her kennel with 4 different size puppies, talking about everything from feet to structure but how she vets people, how people ask her questions. And I can't wait for that to be out there for somebody who's looking for their first pup, because it's not about this. It happens to be one breed, but it happens to be like, these are the questions you should be talking to now you're not going to find that everywhere, but if you find that breeder that'll talk to you and be honest with you and almost kind of put as much weight on we'll call them faults, but we'll call them habits of this type of dog. If they're as honest about the cons and the pros, then you kind of know what you're getting into,
Yep. Totally. Yeah. I think
take a dog from your buddy and roll the dice.
Yeah, exactly. And you might be surprised too. We think we know all this stuff, Ron, but then all of a sudden it turns out we don't really know much of anything.
Look at me.
All I can speak to is my own personal experience.
Right.
But a friend of mine that's never been on a good grouse and woodcock hunt got to shoot a lot of birds off of Daisy's Point, and he's waiting for his dog to come. And Ben Bredigan and I were talking about it because we were all friends together. And I said, well, he's going to get this dog. And then Ben goes, you told him that dog isn't going to go find the birds like Daisy, didn't you? And I said, well, I explained the differences in that breed. And he goes, tell him to get a different dog. And I'm like, well, he really wants this one. So I guess, the trainer's telling him one thing, or the breeder's telling him, these things. And you can only say so much. People kind of make up what they want to do with it. But yeah, Ben's article last summer, I don't know if you read it, but A Kennel Divided in the Pheasants Forever Journal. I mean, it's the reality. It's true.
Well, that's a perfect you segued right into this.
Well, look at us.
Well, look at you. You're so professional.
Oh.
Segued into Ben Bredigan, which is, I didn't realize you guys went to high school together and you lived that close to each other, but I knew you guys had a relationship of knowing each other. But, Ben works for Onyx, and he talked to me about the open house or the hospitality suite they're going to be putting on at Pheasant Fest. And then I was listening to your podcast and you were talking to your producer, Brandon.
Yeah.
And you said, I was on Ron's hunting dog trivia thing. We got to do something like that. And I sent you a text right away, like, hey, you want me to make a trivia game? So breaking into Pheasant Fest, which is, I don't know how you feel about it. I think I do know how you feel about it. It's just softball question. I look forward to going to Pheasant Fest like I look forward to going to a hunting trip, you know?
Yeah.
So first of all, what are we going to be doing? What are you going to be doing? You're going to be doing a live podcast. And do we have the details finally on that now?
Yeah, we do. So last year we tried it for the first time. We hosted a live flush podcast on Friday night, the first night of the show. And we just did it at a local bar in Omaha, and we didn't know if people wanted to come out or not. We thought we'd give it a shot. Well, people came out and it ended up being a lot of fun. So we thought, all right, everyone's in town for this event. Let's do it again. And then when we did your trivia a couple, like around Christmas, I think.
Yeah.
It was just such a fun night of just shooting the breeze, but also it's just like, it's a lot of fun. I thought that makes sense to do with a live audience if we could incorporate them into the show.
Yeah.
And so I'm not doing quite like what your trivia that you put together is. There's this other morning show in Minneapolis that is extremely popular here, and they've had this trivia show that they do every Friday morning on their morning show for, I don't know, maybe 8 or 9, 10 years, something like that. Like it's been ongoing for a long time, and they do every once in a while they'll do it live as well. But it's just, you can play along as a listener of the radio show. And so I'm thinking some sort of a mixture of all of that, but bringing everything focus on the upland world. And then you so graciously accepted the invitation to run with a trivia show, and then also be a guest on it. So I'm like, I'll put the game together, Ron. You just show up.
Yeah, I'm going to find out how unsmart I am.
Yeah, I'm not even going to tell you how it's going to go because it's way more fun to be surprised.
I want to know what radio station it was so I can go on the internet radio and start listening to how they do it, you know?
Okay, so the radio show here in Minneapolis is on KFan, and it's a power trip morning show, and they play this game called the Initials game. And they actually made a version of this game that you can buy and play at home. Wow. And it comes in a box and it has all the questions and somebody reads it. And it's anything from pop culture to sports to, I mean, movies, you name it, objects that you might see, but they come up with a different set of initials, and the answers, like MM, let's say, would be the initials, and would give clues that eventually somebody has to guess Marilyn Monroe or something, you know, like the initials are, So I'm not going with the initials, but I'm using a format similar to get everybody on the panel here that we're going to have. And then if you, Ron, can't guess the answer, I'm opening it up to the live audience to come in. And if they guess the right answer, then we'll have prizes to give away, and who knows, Onyx elite memberships, or I don't think Benelli's going to give us a shotgun. Maybe they will. I don't know, but we'll have things to give away. And then at the end of it, somebody will be crowned the champion.
Yeah. I like that. That sounds fun. You're making me think of like a cross between a trivia game and the one that Vanna White does. Like you get letters, it's strategy as much as it is knowledge, right?
Yes, exactly. And it's interesting how you can put clues together down the list that might be from completely different worlds, but it'll bring you into this, hopefully getting this answer to the question. So I think it'll be fun. We'll give it a try.
Where's that going to be at, Trav?
So it'll be Friday night at the Local, it's called. And the Local is a bar restaurant downtown right by the convention center. I think it's a block or two away, and it's right by, I want to say the Hilton is one of the hotels that most people reserve, like Pheasant River reserves blocks for this huge get together, people coming out. So I think it's like right next to that hotel. But anyway, so it's a couple blocks away. It's the local, and we'll do it at 6:00 on Friday night. We have a room reserved at this place, and I think I was told that it holds 100 people. So it'll be
going to be jam packed.
It'll be hopefully we fill it. Last year we filled the room, and all the seats were taken. I think you'll have to reserve a table, but don't quote me on that. I still have to figure that much out. All I know is if you want to be a part of this, we want you there. It'll be fun. Ron, you'll be there. Yeah. I'll be there. And that's really all anybody else needs to know, right?
That's right. It's gonna be why we hunt. We love people and we love having fun with people.
Absolutely. There'll be 4 people up on the stage. You're one of the 4. I am the
moderator.
The moderator. Yep. And then of course we have our podcast producer as well. So I told him to cue up some game show music to kind of keep this thing moving along. It should be fun. I've got like half of the game already put together. Because I figured we'd be able to find a spot to do this, and I started to get to work on it last week, and then I was confirmed that we did lock down the location. So,
good. I cannot wait. That it's almost like between that and then afterwards, because you tied this in with Ben Brennigan. Ben asked me to donate some stuff and come to the what are they calling that they're having? Onyx and Leinenkugel's putting on.
I'm not sure the name of it. It's a get together. Hopefully they don't overlap too much.
Well, no, he said it's going to start late.
Oh, good. Okay.
It's going to run late. I think it starts at like 8 or 9 and it's going to run on. It's like a hospitality suite. But I think people that come in, I think Leinenkugel, I shouldn't misquote it, but if I'm not mistaken, Ben said Leinenkugel is donating the beer. And then a lot of the money from the beer sales goes right to Habitat.
Cool.
So, a good reason to drink beer. I mean, not that I've ever needed a good reason to drink beer, but I'll go away with that one thing. Like I just gave my fair share.
You just planted some blue stem.
That's right. No, that's going to be fun. And then at our booth, the Hunting Dog Podcast booth, we have like a 4-space end cap. And I'm sure, my listeners heard me talk about it. I'm going to have a couple of my sponsors there. We'll have the Upland Institute up on a monitor. And one of my really good, again, younger friends, him and his wife, I've been going up to their house and we built a portable bar, a 10-foot portable bar. And I'm bringing in my bar stools. And I took a Gunner Kennel food crate and I put a 5-inch hole in the lid because the lid's kind of an angle like a cornhole. And we're going to have a free will. You could play for free and maybe win a koozie or I'm going to have lanyards and whistles and koozies, and all my sponsors are sending us stuff for giveaway. But you can come up and put a buck in the bucket and try to get a cornhole bag into the gunner box. And if you do, you get a prize. And I would say most people, unless they're really destitute, would take a chance at giving $1 to the Habitat. So
right.
I mean, we're just going to change Pheasant Fest history here. Next, what we can do next year after this?
I don't know. Yes. Yeah, it's a fun gathering for sure. I look forward to it. I'm going through hunting withdrawals. It's been 3 weeks now since I've shouldered a gun, and it's driving me insane. Like I had so much fun out there in the field this year, and every day out, I just wanted it to keep going. I never wanted to stop. I'm like my dog. My wife says it. She goes, "You were meant for that dog," because it's true. We both want to see what's on over the next hill, and then over the next hill beyond that, and then over the hill on the next mountainside. We just have that wanderlust about us that it doesn't go away.
Yeah, and that's kind of the beauty of hunting too. It's so seasonal. Now, certainly, if you've got that kind of time off, you can get more than most people, but it's not like golf. It's not like bowling. You can go golfing any day, right? You can go bowling certainly any day of the year. It's that anticipation of the next season. It almost, it's like you could be sitting there eating dinner and all of a sudden this thought hits you like, I heard them guys talking about going to Kansas, all of a sudden you're in Kansas in your mind and it's 8 months away, but it's so, Yeah, I look forward to it too, and I've enjoyed the journey with all the Upland podcasts out there. I love hearing the new ones too. You know,
Yeah.
there'll be somebody brand new. I'm like, good for you, good
Right.
for you. You're letting everybody know that you don't know nothing yet, or you're letting everybody know that you're going to try to do this. And yeah, I mean, together, I don't think we have to worry about the dog hunting. I mean, there's other hunting we could worry about, but that's another episode for another like Sportsman's Alliance to come on, you know. But I think we're in pretty good shape between the Pheasants Forever, Quail Forever, Rough Grouse Society, and Pheasant Fest. Yeah, I think our future's rosy.
Yeah, I mean, I never anticipated that I could talk about hunting 365 days a year and
Yeah,
people would listen to it,
yeah,
and it's amazing to me, this world that we're in right now. And you've been in the podcasting world a lot longer than I have. But I agree. Like, whenever I meet somebody else that's doing it, I feel like I take the same approach that you do, Ron. I mean, when I produced my first show, it was because Scott, owner of our company, wanted me to host, or wanted us to have a podcast to go with our TV show. It's like, all right, I'll give it a whirl. We'll see what happens here. But you were the first person that reached out to say, hey, welcome, glad to have you. Like, you were very generous about that. And I still remember that. And I like to do the exact same thing with other people, and I wish them well. And it's fun to talk about this stuff. And
yeah. There's room
that
in the
sometimes
uplands. There's room in the uplands, and there's room on the microphone for good stories. You know.
I think there is. Yeah, definitely. And there's some crossover, and some people think I'm annoying and have a terrible accent, and some people might think that you're annoying and you.
Oh, I get
Yeah.
it. I have made the mistake of reading iTunes reviews once in a while. I had one guy wrote me, says, Ron, I love your show, but I would donate money if you'd get better audio equipment. Please, please, your audio sucks.
Yep, everyone has an opinion, and we just do what we can.
I got one last one for you, Trav, and I'll let you get back to work. Between you and Ron and Scott and Bill, with all the shows you do you draw straws for where you're going, or do you make up your own? Or do you like, hey, I wanted to go there this year? I mean, is there a summit meeting?
Well, every once in a while, we'll cross paths with a plan that one of the others have. But typically, we all bring our own ideas to a meeting, and we sometimes wait. I have a list and a folder of story ideas, and like, a lot of that comes in like October, November. We just have oodles to pick from on invites to people that would, because we want to go film with our viewers. We want to go film with people that are out there living the lifestyle. I think that makes for the best TV. And I want to go on adventures too, but I can only be in one place at one time. I can't do back to back to back to back to back. I was on the road 5 weeks in a row this year, and from October through November. And my wife was, bless her, but we have 4 kids, and I miss my kids and my wife sometimes too. And they want their dad around. So we do mix it up. But knowing that our season is fairly short, we say, all right, we don't want 6 pheasant hunting shows in South Dakota.
Right.
So let's pick one.
There is some coordination on that end. Yeah.
Yeah. And then we put it together like a puzzle and say, well, okay, you do a South Dakota pheasant hunt in November, because I can go to North Dakota and hunt for Hungarian partridge in November. Right. And, we're mixing up the programs, and we're also, like we mentioned at the top of the show, like, we don't have an unlimited budget either.
Right.
We're a relatively small production company. If we want to keep the show on the air, we can't overspend. So we can't fly all over the world all the time to exotic places. And there's the other part that we all really like to hunt with our dogs. So I want to drive most places. When we filmed up in Alaska this year, and I didn't bring my dog with, and I really missed not having her.
Yeah.
So with all the camera equipment and guns flying up and other things, I opted not to fly the dog. And I don't know, it changes it a little bit. Once you have that companion out there, it's not the same if they're not with you.
Yeah.
So that kind of dictates sometimes where we end up hunting too.
Yeah. Yeah. I always kind of wondered about that because you're all basically making the same show, right?
Yeah.
Just
Yeah.
different episodes. You're like, oh, no. Hey, I planned on going to, I got this great connection. Like, I haven't been there in 3 years and it's going to go with me. Yeah.
Yep. Yep. I wanted to go back out to the Badlands in North Dakota again.
Mhm.
And Bill had also lined up a hunt out there for opening day. And I said, well, okay, I was out there 2 years ago. Go for it. You take it. I'll go. And I ended up hunting rough grouse in Wisconsin
Mhm.
in roughly the same time period. But fortunately, there's a lot of options. So we
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
try to keep an open mind. And like I said, it's a puzzle that's always moving. And sometimes hunts fall apart. I had a couple this year fall apart, and then I adjusted mid-season. And again, I always tell people, let us know if you think that we should come out and hunt with you and why, and tell us your story a little bit. And it works out every once in a while that we can do that.
Yeah, no, I've seen that. You've had listeners and contests and families come out and stuff. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, and it goes back to like what you were talking about, Ron. Like the Hank hunt. Scott lost his dog Hank, and it was just a young pup and just entering his prime, and
Right.
he had to put a couple of other dogs that he had lost prior to that, and he was just like sick to his stomach about having to put dogs down again. He's like, I'm going to do a celebration hunt. Well, people that come out on this hunt, the money that it costs to go stay at this place, and it's not a huge amount that we've asked, but all the money goes to Pheasants Forever, build a wildlife area, so we're trying to help in ways that we can.
Right.
And then Pheasants Forever is auctioned off a hunt to go on a road trip with us the last 3 years. So we did South Dakota, North Dakota, and Iowa. And all that money goes to Pheasants Forever as well, which, we like the partnership. We like to be able to do that. And hopefully it keeps working and people keep wanting to do it.
Yeah, I'm sure it will. I can't imagine it won't. I see your views going up all the time. So anyway, where are you going to be hanging out the most at Pheasant Fest? Because I know we're going to see each other obviously Friday night.
Yep.
But where do you guys have a booth? Are you hanging out with any particular stage, or what are you doing, Trav?
Yeah, we do have a booth. We've had a flush booth the last couple of years. I don't even know where it is on the floor, to be honest. I know I have to be there. I'm not in charge of the booth. It's somewhere on the floor. This year I'm going to be, there's a film festival on Thursday night before the show kicks off. So people come to town the night before the event. They want to come out to the film fest, Pheasants Forever and Quail Forever putting that on. It's at the Poorhouse. I have a film that will be airing on there along with Project Upland and Pheasants Forever and Quail Forever. They've got some films that they're showing as well. So we'll do that Thursday night. Friday, Daisy and I have the distinct pleasure of being the grand marshals for the bird dog parade to kickstart. Yeah. So I'll try to keep her under control, and then we'll lead all the dog breeds through the convention center as kind of like the kickstart to the event. So that'll be Friday. Then we'll go inside. I do have 2 presentations that I'm giving on the Path to the Public Uplands Pavilion, or one of those things. But one of the stages, the seminar stages, I'm going to be talking Friday and Saturday. So I've got those 2 shows, and then I'll be most likely in our booth when I'm not doing that. And then of course our big game, buddy, on Friday night.
I cannot wait. When I get off this call in a minute, I'm looking up K-Fan. I'm going to if nothing else, try to get a picture of what I'm walking into.
Yeah.
I'm not a competitive person. I could play cards. The other night, we played Sorry with my daughter and son-in-law, and I lost hard, right? But I love playing. I love playing. So I got to at least know what I'm getting into. So I'm going to do my best to not be the worst contestant in this.
You won't be the worst contestant. And it's fun. So my wife and I, our real good friends, have bought all 3 of the Initials games. You can look it up.
Oh, okay.
And we play it regularly. And so that's why it's always in my mind to do something like this. We've been playing it for probably like 3 years now since they came out with the first Initials game for everyone to play with. But otherwise, listeners play right along with it, and you can podcast it afterwards. So, yep, you can search for that and get an idea. This will be a variation of that. It's not going to be an exact same, but it's going to be all upland hunting, and you're going to know the answers. But the question is, Ron, will you answer it before your competitor?
I don't know.
And if you miss it, you're out. You're out for the round.
Who else up on the panel besides you as the moderator and me as a participant?
You'll know. You'll know.
God.
Yeah, you'll know.
You're gonna tell me that? I hate you.
I'm a TV producer. I gotta leave a cliffhanger or a tease.
Well, you did it. So everybody show up to that. Show up to the hospitality suite for the beers for Habitat. Show up to the film fest. I'm gonna be at all of them. So I like I said, I can't wait to see you. I can't wait to shake your hand. And
I might even hug you.
Yeah, you better. There's no to worry about.
Yeah.
I love hugging. I'm a hugger.
Yeah. Yep. Same
hugger.
here.
And if you don't know where our booths are, just listen over the murmur of the Pheasant Fest where you hear laughter. It'll either be over at your booth when you're there or at my booth.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. I love the conversations and the stories, and that really is, it never gets old, like you said earlier on. And I cannot wait to see you, my friend.
I'm looking forward to it, and I'm going to come up with a couple of options that I'll bring up to your attention when I see you for the next time we go hunt together.
Ooh, now I'm hanging on the edge of my seat.
My mind's been working in two channels here while we've been recording. So.
We're going back to Alaska, aren't we?
I think I didn't say that.
Okay.
All right, Trav, I'll let you go. I got to get something to eat, and you probably got to at least do some work today.
This is way more fun. I appreciate the time, my friend. We'll do it again soon, I hope.
All right, sounds good, Trav.